Hi everyone, today I am so excited because my channel had just recently hit one of the milestones that I set for myself in 2019, which is getting to 1,000 subscribers. So thank you so much to everyone who subscribed to the channel, and hope that you are having a great and amazing 2020 so far. And as part of today's video, I wanted to do a quick Q&A, basically aggregating all the questions that I've received from you guys. Okay, so the first question that I have here is that, one, I don't have any internship experience, what should I do? So this is a very common question that I get, especially from students who are about to graduate or about to hit the job market for the first time, and they're not really sure what they need to do in order to best prepare themselves for the job market. So for students in that situation, typically what I recommend there is that, one, first have an understanding of your own situation. Why don't you have an internship opportunity? Is it because, one, you didn't look for those opportunities? Or is that number two, because you didn't have the right environment or the right situations that permitted you to find an internship experience? If it was the former, then I think what you need to do right now is go out there and apply for internship opportunities from companies. You know, there are a lot of companies out there, either in San Francisco, Bay Area, New York, Seattle, Boston, or any city that you're in. There are tons and tons of startups, whether on Craigslist or Indeed.com. There are a lot of startups out there that are looking for people with the drive, the dedication, the hunger to really get things done. So if you put yourself out there, go socialize, go to meetups, and try to socialize and find people who might have these opportunities for you, then I think that would solve your problem with not having an internship experience. And if anything, in Seattle, for example, there are tons and tons of startups that are recruiting, hiring at universities, at local meetups, and they're really desperate for good people who are able to contribute meaningfully to their startup. So I think if you're in that bucket where you're telling me that you haven't had any experience because of lack of opportunities, I think what you should do right now is go out there and try to socialize, either LinkedIn, Craigslist, or go on Meetup, and you'll be able to find companies or people willing to give you that opportunity. Now, if you're in the second bucket and you're saying you don't have the opportunities or the environment to help yourself find that internship experience, like myself, I was a Division I student athlete, and I had to dedicate a lot of time to playing tennis. But I didn't let that stop me from not having an internship experience. So what I did at the time was I went online and I did a lot of different tutorials. I knew that software engineering, I knew that writing iOS apps was one of the things I really wanted to do. So what I did was I went online and I went through this course from Stanford that taught people how to write apps using Objective-C. So I did that. I did that over several weekends, and I picked something up, and then I applied. I went to meetups and finally had this connection with this CEO of his startup, and he gave me an internship experience over weekends. It was really nice. He gave me this opportunity to work for his startup on weekends and also weekday nights after class, so that I can get some experience building iOS apps and also maybe potentially in the future join the startup. So as you can imagine, there are tons and tons of opportunities available right now, either online or from meetups that are local to you. So if you don't think that you have an internship experience, reach out to me and I can find and help connect you with someone who's looking for an intern. The second question here is, I don't have a degree in computer science. Can I still apply to be a software engineer? That's a really valid question. I think recently a lot of people have been debating making a switch and pivoting from a non-computer science industry into becoming a software engineer. And my answer to this question is that yes, I don't think that a traditional degree is going to be as important to you if you're looking to be a software engineer. Some of the best engineers I've worked with come from a non-traditional STEM background. They've had a degree in arts, in English, in history, but they have a really strong hunger to learn and to pick things up, and they have a really clear thinking process of how they approach a problem. And I think that those are the most important things that you need in order to be a good software engineer. The technical skills can be picked up if you have the drive and the dedication to persist and learn them. And I think what makes a good engineer really, really good is that their ability to approach a problem and think creatively, critically, and understand the root of the problem. I think those are the really rare things that not every software engineer in the market has today. So if you're coming from a non-traditional background and you're trying to pivot into becoming a software engineer today, then yes, I don't think you necessarily need to go through a 4-year degree program. I think maybe you can even go to a boot camp and learn to pick up some skills. Okay? If you're interested, I did a video. I'll link this up here so that you can see what are the differences, the pros and cons of doing a 4-year degree in computer science versus going for a boot camp. Next question. What are some of the most important skills that I need as a software engineer? I think that's a great question. And to answer that question, first is to understand what a software engineer really does. Right? So first thing, a software engineer writes code. Additionally, but if you think more critically, a software engineer is not only there in order to write code. A software engineer is there to solve problems. More specifically, problems that can be solved using either technology or software. So at the core of it, a software engineer is a problem solver. So if you think about this problem from a different angle, then the problem becomes, what are the core skills or what are the core skill sets that you need in order to be a good problem solver? And I think this skill set doesn't change from industry to industry. The domain that you apply your skills might be different. You could be a software engineer, or you could be a civil engineer, or you could be an artist trying to solve a different set of problems. I think regardless of what industry you're in, the domain of it might change, but the core skills that make you successful as a problem solver doesn't change. So to answer this question, I would say the most important skills that you need as a software engineer are, one, the ability to think creatively. So the ability to look at a problem and understand at the root of it what is causing that problem and try to solve that using software or technology. The second thing here is that the ability to communicate effectively with people. And this might seem a little bit weird for software engineers who are perceived as introverts or people who are not really good at socializing. But some of the best engineers I've worked with are extremely good technical communicators. They're able to take a concept that might seem very abstract and then turn that into something that people from non-technical backgrounds can understand very easily. So I think as you grow as a software engineer, that ability to communicate and to take an idea and explain that in layman terms to non-technical people, I think that's an extremely underrated skill that almost every single engineer should learn in order to be a really good software engineer. And third, if we're talking more concretely about the domain of software engineering, then the skills and knowledge that you need to have are, one, data structures. So understanding what arrays, linked lists, heaps, binary trees, binary search trees, right? So understanding what those data structures are, the pros and cons for each one of them, and when do you want to use one over the other. Those are some of the most important fundamentals of computer science that you need to know. Number two, learn your algorithms, right? Breadth first search, depth first search, dynamic programming, greedy. So those are some of the most common algorithms that you're going to need and learn and understand as a software engineer. And thirdly, 3, if you have a little bit more experience understanding how a web service works from a very fundamental perspective, understanding when you go on a browser and then type in some URL, what does that happen behind the background? And if you were to build a web service today that takes in some input from a user and you want to store that somewhere, and if your browser crashes, what happens after? So having a little bit of understanding of how that works end to end, from a browser to a web service to a database, right? How does that connection flow all the way through? I think that is a critical fundamental that you need to learn as a software engineer. And that's going to carry you very far, because everything in the world today, everything that is technology related has to happen in the cloud or on the internet. So understanding how that works is going to be a very important skill. Next question. I have been applying to many companies out there right now, but I haven't heard back from any of them. Is there still hope? This is a really interesting problem, because I say that not in the sense that this is unique to this person, but I think there's both a macroeconomics and a microeconomics aspect to this. The macroeconomics to this is that, one, the industry is becoming a lot more competitive these days. You're having people graduating from some of the top colleges in the country competing for a very small pool of jobs. If you think of all the jobs that Amazon, Google, Facebook, Twitter, that they're offering and hiring today versus the pool of graduates that are coming out of computer science degrees, not only in the US, but in the entire world itself, right? So just a little bit perspective here, the scale could be 10,000 jobs available to 100,000 or maybe 1 million graduates all around the world every single year. So you can see here that there's not a lot of job opportunities available, but there is a large pool of candidates. So if you're graduating with a computer science degree today, I think you have to recognize, one is that the market is very competitive, and the companies recognize that. They know that there are a lot of graduates coming out, and it's a very noisy market right now, which is there's a lot of graduates, but not necessarily good ones who might be a good fit for the company itself. So that's the macroeconomic part of this conversation, because one, there's a lot of competition today. Two, there's not a lot of jobs available in relation to the pool of candidates. And three, do you have the skills and the knowledge or the credentials to be competitive in this market? So the number one thing that you need to think about here is that does your resume, does it seem competitive with the rest of the market? So talking about resume, I've written a Medium article about how you can make sure your resume really shines and stands out among the pool of candidates. I'll link that in the description below, so make sure you click into that and understand what hiring managers and recruiters are looking for today. So talking about competitive resume, what that means is that you want to have content that separates you from the rest of the candidates. Having interesting internship experiences, having interesting classes that you took, or having interesting research projects that you took as a student. So focus more on that part of the content of the resume, not necessarily on the formatting, the layout, and things like that. Those are, quite important as well. But between these two things, content and formatting, I would say focus more on the content itself. Make sure you have really interesting and meaty projects on your resume that you can talk about at length and very intelligently, because not only does it make you a better candidate, but it also gives you this opportunity to interact with the interviewer and have an intelligent conversation with them. Maybe they have a different perspective on the projects that you've had, and maybe they can kind of give you some hints on how you can improve those passion projects or side projects. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what's happening within the industry itself and what you can do in order to make yourself much more competitive. But, long story short, what I think here is that no, you're not out of hope, right? there's so many companies still hiring, and even not within the US itself. There are tons of companies hiring in China, in Southeast Asia, in Africa. There are tons of interesting startups and companies. And if you're interested, there are tons and tons of opportunities out there. So don't limit your pool to only, within the US or within Bay Area or Seattle, right? Those are some of the most competitive markets in the world. Expand your horizon, look outside of these hot markets, and you're probably gonna find something that would be a good fit for yourself. Next question, I have a full-time job and family. How can I find time to prepare for interviews? Now that's an interesting question because I've gotten that question not only from people with full-time jobs, but also from students who've had organizations or social clubs that they have to attend. So what do you do in this case when you have other commitments that might prevent you from dedicating time to preparing for interviews? A little bit of my backstory here is that, again, as I mentioned earlier, I was a student athlete in college, so I had to dedicate a lot of time not only to academics, but also to tennis, and also to all the part-time jobs that I had on campus. So I was doing a lot of different things at the time. I was, in the cafeteria working, or I was working in the library as a mentor, or I was doing TA work, right? So all of that helped pay for some of my living expenses, and tennis paid for my tuition, and I was basically juggling 3 different things all at the same time. And beyond that, I still had to find time to prepare for engineering interviews. And the way I did that was I had to be very, very disciplined. What I did at the time was on my calendar itself, I had to list out chunks of time dedicated for doing certain things. If I was playing tennis, I have to dedicate 2 hours of that just to practice itself. And then after that, I have to dedicate some time for work. And then whenever I have a little bit of time in between, for example, I would try to sneak in a little bit of preparation or reading or doing some sort of practice question in order to make the best use of my time. As you can probably imagine, my calendar, my schedule was fully packed all the time. And I really believe in the idea that if you don't fill up your calendar with work, you're bound to fill that in with something else instead. That could be, Netflix, hanging out with friends, watching movies, etc., etc. So instead of doing those things, can you find some time within your calendar to dedicate to doing interview preparation? Okay, it doesn't matter if it's 1 hour, 30 minutes, 2 hours, or whatever it is. What I find through experience is that the momentum accumulates. Okay, so if you're starting to do 1 hour or even 30 minutes of preparation today, and tomorrow you're gonna do a little bit more, maybe 45 minutes, maybe 1 hour, or maybe an hour and a half. But what that does over time is that it's gonna give you that momentum that's gonna push you and drive you to do more every single day. And that power is truly, truly amazing. So if you think that you don't have the time to do all that prep work today, find maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or even 30 minutes, right? Just dedicate a little bit of time to get started. It doesn't have to be a full-blown sit-down session where you're in the library, heads down, and just learning nonstop for 2 hours. It doesn't have to be that way. It could be, you're sitting on your couch, maybe your family's watching the TV, and you just pull up a little note and you start reading on there, right? Just do maybe 5 or 10 minutes just to get your brain kind of in that mode of learning and see where that goes. Okay? So again, just to summarize there, 1, you have to be disciplined. 2, you have to sneak in time, right? Find time to learn. And number 3, let that momentum build. Start from something small today and slowly build it up and see where that takes you. A little bit every single day is gonna take you very, very far. Okay, so those are the questions that I've received, and thank you again so much for subscribing to my channel. And if you found today's video useful, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and feel free to share this channel with all of your friends out there who might be looking for a job as a software engineer or looking to grow their career as a software engineer. My name is Zia, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.